once again with the ill behavior. We're live.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. It's your favorite podcast duo, Dylan and Jason, here again for another sort of lackluster live stream.
Where Jason is always has the same background, and I always have a different one.
Yes, Dylan is now in his college dorm room, as you can tell from his whiteboard.
In Amsterdam, got my residence card today. So any Amsterdam-based people using or watching, hit me up. Let's hang out.
Yeah. Today, I want to talk about something that we're pretty excited about. I think it's a pretty big deal. We have managed to get the average approval rate on SubmitHub up to 25%. So that means that 1 out of every 4 submissions gets approved. And that's a pretty big deal when you look at the historical context of where we came from. So when SubmitHub started in late 2015, the average approval rate was 10%. It dipped as low as 8% in the middle of 2016. And up until early 2020, it never really went past 12%. Then things started to change. And since that point, we've been on a steady increase from 12% to 25%. So today, I wanted to go over some of the things that we've done over the last 3 years to help improve the average approval rates. And much of this boils down to getting the right songs to the right curators. So we want to make sure that artists are able to make informed decisions. And we want to make sure that when curators receive their submissions, they feel like it is well targeted for their channel and something that they can share. So the things we're going to touch on today that contributed to this change are genres and genre matching, similar artists and moods. And then a couple of weeks ago, we made some pretty big changes on SubmitHub where we increased the requirements around premium credits and also added a new 4-credit tier for curators. And so I'll bring that all together at the end and sort of share my thoughts on how that has contributed to this rise, and also share some thoughts about where we're going next and what more we can do to help improve this. In the meanwhile, if you've got questions, you can ask them in the chat. Looks like a lot of people are already doing that. We'll try to address them at the end. We can have sort of a separate Q&A. But yeah, without further ado, let's begin with genres. So in the beginning, there were 4 genres, if I'm remembering right. We had rock.
That's biblical.
Yeah, in the beginning. Rock, hip hop, electronic, and other for everything else. There might have been folk. Was that a 5th genre?
Sounds about right.
This is biblical, right? You just don't remember that well. It's a little bit fuzzy.
Well, what's it? The 5 commandments. We're just, That's right. No, it was 10, wasn't it?
No, yeah, that was the 10 commandments. You should know this. You're of the Jewish Brotherhood, right? So
I don't pay attention very well.
Over the years, we've actually grown to 225 genres. So it's been an interesting process. Maybe I'll just touch on the first question I have. Dylan, you're in charge of genres. How do we go about adding new ones to the site?
Well, we get sent a lot of requests from people who use the website. Everybody has their ideas about what genres should be added, and I often agree with them. And quite often, we also get people recommending genres we already have that they just haven't seen that are on there, because we have so many genres. We have, what's the exact number?
225.
I mean, 225, where actually the normal person's ability to pick out what genre this song that they're listening to is I don't think that expansive. Anyway, so I'm going to talk about how we use our genres and how that helped improve our average approval rate. Correct?
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I
Yeah,
suppose. So, I mean, curators who join SubmitHub get presented with this list of genres. Initially, it was 5. Today, it's 225. They
yeah.
are not allowed to choose all of them. And Dylan here spends a lot of time actually making sure that people are selecting the right genres for their curation. So maybe touch on that a little bit.
Yeah. So that one is quite a complicated little area of the website because I've got like a hard rock playlist that I listen to personally, and I really like it. I really like hard rock, but I'm not gonna post about hard rock on Indie Shuffle or metal or whatever. Any, I might post hard rock, but like I have a metal playlist. I won't post metal on Indie Shuffle, and I think that a lot of curators, out of the goodness of their heart, in the beginning sort of chose as many genres as they liked or they thought they liked. Maybe they like flamenco, but they don't have a flamenco playlist, uh, and so essentially you have this sort of genre bloat going on, and it's not like the people who have chosen these genres don't specifically like them that much or don't have a really good way to share them. And so what was happening was you'd fire off your music to somebody who said they liked flamenco, but they don't really have a flamenco playlist, and then they decline your song. And a lot of the time, because it's sort of a background setting, people aren't going in and checking the genres every day. Correct me if I'm wrong. Looks like we got a lot of chats coming through. I'm sure somebody will disagree with that, but I think generally the case is people like, oh, whenever I message them, they say, oh, I haven't checked my genres in like, a couple months. So anyway, making sure that we're staying on top of people about what genres they have selected and whether those are really the ones that they care the most about it's been a lot of work, but I think it's really helped with our increasing the approval rate, and it's good for both sides.
Yeah. So Dylan goes through this manually, but we have done a couple automations in the background over the last, and this is all stuff that's happened over the last 3 years. We've been learning these lessons since 2015, but a lot of these efforts have been put in recently. So I would say, the first 5 years were a lot of feature building, like, oh, we need this, we got to build this, and it has to function this way. And the last 3 years have been a lot of stepping back for Dylan and his team, Jamie and Carrie as well, looking at all of these things to actually make sure that they're working within the system. So there's the manual review, but then there's also automatic stuff. So for example, we're keeping track of how often everyone approves each genre. And if someone's hanging out at below 1% approval consistently for their genres, my code will actually come in and suggest that they remove that genre. And in some cases, we will actually automatically remove it. So let's say they've received 100 submissions in a row for flamenco, and they've never approved a single one of them. What we'll do is we'll automatically remove it. We'll notify the curator that it has been removed. We'll give them the option to add it back and sort of defend their case. But what we're trying to do is do this cleanup for them, because as Dylan mentioned, people sign up to SubmitHub, they choose their genres, and they don't necessarily go back and revisit them. Another thing that we've done is we've put some caps in terms of how many genres you can select. So at the beginning, you could select all of the genres. And then once we passed about 100 genres, we put a cap of 65 in. And we found that that was still a little bit too broad. And so over time, we've created these new rules. One of the latest rules now is that you're allowed 15 genres per playlist that you can share to. So if you are a Spotify curator, many playlisters these days are creating quite focused and niche playlists. And we've actually found that Spotify's algorithm is not too fond of playlists that are very scattered. It can send the wrong signals to Spotify about who you should sound like and who you should be placed with. So we're encouraging playlists to focus on specific niches. And I know there's pros and cons to this, and a lot of artists don't like the fact that these days on Spotify, everything has to sort of fit into a bucket. But there are upsides as well. And so what we want to do is make sure that a curator with one playlist doesn't have 50 different genres enabled. If you've got a tech house playlist, you should be focused on electronic and techno genres that will go in.
If I can add something here, one of the things I noticed in going through individual accounts was that you had quite a few playlisters who were just starting new playlists, new indie rock playlists. So they selected indie rock, but their main playlist was tech house, and it basically and they're not sharing that the indie rock that they have selected in their tech house playlist. They're just kind of waiting for their indie rock playlist to boom, and then it'll all be worth it. But in the meantime, the people who are submitting to them under our old genre score, which I think is important to talk about, they were seeing that this playlister has 10 out of 10 engagement, but actually it's for tech house. And they have indie rock selected because they have an indie rock playlist that they're starting, but that doesn't seem fair to me. About like for an artist essentially looking for an indie rock share, you know?
Yeah, so that actually gets into, I think it's a good way to pivot into our next point, which is the genre match score. So if you look at almost every other submission platform out there, dare I say everyone, they claim to have some form of genre targeting, but I don't think that they really have anything as good as what we have. So what we're trying to do, and this is, I'm obviously like humble bragging, but I do think our genre matching is actually pretty good, and it is quite complex. So let's say a curator has picked 30 genres. They're not going to treat each of those genres the same way. So to Dylan's point, we don't want to have that curator pop up for all 30 genres as if they are as interested in every single one. They might have a big tech playlist and a small indie rock one. That tech house one is the one that they're going to approve for the majority of the time. And that's really the genre that they like. The indie rock one is something that they're less passionate about and they're not going to share as often. So what we realized early on was that not all curators are created equally, and some of them are more focused on certain genres than others. So I created this thing called a genre match score. And what it does is it factors a few things. First, how often does that curator approve the genre relative to all of their other genres? So do they like it more or less than their other genres? Then it looks at how often that curator approves it relative to all of their peers. Do they approve it more or do they approve it less? And then it also looks at just an absolute number of how often they approve it. So there's a few different things factoring into this genre match, and it has evolved over time. It's a little bit more complex than that. But ultimately what we're trying to do is we want artists to be able to sort the list according to the curators who are most likely to enjoy a genre, not necessarily share it, right? Because different curators have different ways of promoting music. For example, a music blog typically would share 10 or 15% of their songs, and a Spotify playlister may be more able to share their songs, but that blog might be more into the genre. So there are some complexities to it, but the whole point of this genre match thing was to try and steer artists in the direction of curators who are more likely to enjoy their music. But then we hit a bit of a hitch, and I think I saw this alluded to in the comments. I'm trying not to pay too much attention because I got to focus here, right? Focus
here. I'm looking at the chat. It kind of has nothing to do with what we're talking about, which is pretty funny. But keep going. You soldier on.
Okay, so genre match is cool and all, but one of the problems that we had was that our engagement score, which is another interesting metric we won't dive into too much today, was, to Dylan's point, sometimes a little bit misleading. So let's go back to this example of a playlister who likes tech house. They've got a huge tech playlist. They also happen to like indie rock. Now, maybe the genre match is working here. It's saying they're a 10 out of 10 for tech house and a 3 out of 10 for indie rock. But an artist will look at it and see, whoa, but hold on, their indie rock engagement is 10 out of 10. And so what we quickly learned was that this engagement score was sometimes a little bit misleading to artists and would draw them into making selections that they otherwise shouldn't make. And so I spent about a month trying to code a solution that actually weighs each individual genre separately when it comes to engagement. So rather than looking at that playlister holistically and trying to come up with an engagement score, how many listeners they have, how many views they have on their playlist, whatever, Rather than looking at it holistically, we're going to look at it on a genre by genre basis. So when they're filtering by tech house, I will show the genre match for tech house, and I will also show their engagement for their tech house. And when you filter by indie rock, I will show the genre match for indie rock and also the engagement for indie rock. So that was another step that helped us. Well, tangent, that whole change was actually spurred by a separate conversation Dylan and I had, where we were exploring whether we should allow
split out each
playlist separately. And the problem we were trying to solve was this one where a playlister has multiple playlists. Some of them are huge and some of them are little, and we didn't want artists to get misled into submitting based on this perception that they would get into this big playlist only to be shared to a small one. And we were getting quite a lot of complaints about it. Like, hey, I spent 3 credits to submit to this huge guy, and all I got was a 200-person playlist. And we'd be like, well, yeah, that's because that's where they share their indie rock. And so we had to try to solve that problem somehow. And splitting out the playlists creates a whole different set of problems, and we decided not to go that route. And instead, we created a dynamic engagement score, which you can read about on the website. And I'm actually going to publish an article shortly after this, which will summarize everything in this video and give you some of these handy links. But this dynamic engagement score also then helped artists make more informed decisions about genre-specific choices, who they should send to for that submission. Okay, so we got genre match.
Which we can tie into the overall theme of how that helped increase our approval rate, because you like will end up submitting more relevant music, and
you're going to think twice about sending to someone who costs quite a bit if their engagement is piddly squat. It is a bit of a shortcoming of the site that we don't have sort of dynamic pricing, but my worry there is you're not paying for the playlist, you're paying for the curator's time and consideration, and that is based on supply and demand. So a really influential or popular playlister is far more in demand. They're dealing with a lot of submissions, and so increasing the price helps balance out that demand and bring equilibrium to the supply and demand.
It's funny though, because this is not a helpful comment, but You'd think that as we show more attractive curators to submitters, that actually approval rates would go down, because there would be so much music going. Yeah, they'd be flooded. But actually, I think that just the real job here is getting the right music to the right curators, and both sides want it, and that's why we always say, and I think partially why the approval rate's gone up is because we've done a lot of educating of people about how to use SubmitHub as a tool, and I consistently see the people who put in more effort into deciding who to send to, the better the outcomes, and that increases the approval rate. So it really is in the hands of the user as well as us, and so we're both of those two things are working together.
Yeah.
The conversation.
It's spinning really quickly, so it's hard to keep track of.
It's all about hot or not.
This is out of order. Well, I don't know if this is about hot or not, and if it is, it's actually relevant to curator side. But earlier this year, so we've always had a way to preview the songs that a playlister has shared recently, and it was, I keep using the word playlister, but this applies to curators of any kind: blogs, YouTube channels, playlists, radio stations. We had a way to look at their 5 most recent shares, but earlier this year, I actually whipped up a little bit of code that allows you to, inline, while you're looking at curators, just hit a play button and sample the stuff that they've shared. And I took it a step further, and you can actually, when there's a playlist and it lists all of their playlists, you can flip through the samples of the songs in their playlist. And they're using 30-second samples from Spotify's API, which allows you to get a much better idea of whether a curator is going to be interested in your music or not. And then another thing that we did earlier this year, and this is related to the dynamic genre, but let's say a playlister has 10 playlists. When you filter by a genre, we're actually going to sort the relevant playlists to the top of that list. So again, coming back to this tech house one, who also has an indie rock playlist, I don't want to show their tech house playlist on top. I want to show their indie rock playlist on top as you're going through the list. So that actually was part of the dynamic genre and dynamic engagement stuff that was going on. That was a pretty tough thing to code. As I mentioned, the competition ain't got nothing on this. And it's a lot. It's helped a lot in terms of allowing artists to make snap judgments. A minute spent trying to figure out if it's curate. You don't actually have to open up their playlist and go check out what's going on. You can just hit play inline on SubmitHub. Okay.
Okay.
Comment be gone. There we go. Okay. Chapter 3.
Wait, how do I? There's one comment I really wanted to highlight a while back.
You highlight it, and then you.
Can I do that? I don't think I can.
Do you have the power? Are you allowed to?
Oh, there was one. Oh yeah, when will vegetarian progressive grindcore be added to the genre list? Oh.
When 2 people request it. It has to be more than one.
No,
and it has to show up in Google. That's
I was gonna say when Taylor Swift comes out with an album full of that genre, then we can consider it. It's very unlikely.
Okay, chapter 3. Sometimes artists don't know their genre.
Oh my god, this one is wild. This one is. I honestly think that all sides of the industry are as confused about genres. I've literally talked to people who are 20 years deep into the music industry. 20 years isn't even that much. I'm talking to people who are there and who are there on the music spectrum, and their ideas of genres and sounds and whatever. It's just like genres are like a spectrum, and there's millions of them, and there's like your music falls on like 10 different axes, and like, I mean, obviously I don't know. When people ask me what I DJ, I say like house derivatives. How do you even go into it? Like you can say tech house, but you also
is that mathematical?
House derivative? Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. There are obviously definitive genres. I'm not saying that there aren't, but I just feel like it's a wild world out there, and really the point that you've brought up is that artists and curators are not really like 100% sure on things, and
so I tried to solve it. I tried to ameliorate the problem. I added 2 elements that I think are complementary to genre and can help steer the ship in the right direction. So that's mood and similar artists. And similar artists is actually the one that's a slightly bigger factor. So the way this works, we have boatloads of data in our systems about each of our curators, their preferences, what they've approved, who's in their playlist, who's on their blog. We can really create a pretty good profile. We're like the Facebook of music stalking, but we've got a pretty good profile of our curators and what they are generally into. And so I thought, okay, cool. Well, if an artist can put in other artists who have inspired them or who might sound similar, that's a good way to kind of move them in the right direction towards curators who might enjoy their music. So even if they get their genres kind of wrong, the similar artist might be a bit more accurate, and that's going to steer them towards the choices that will enjoy their music. So we're taking this data. Let's say you're an artist and you input your 5 similar artists. What I do on the back end is I actually use Spotify's API to look at those 5 artists and find out who they are similar to. Like, what are their 20 similar artists? And I create this almost pyramid of 200 or 300 artists that are interconnected and sound kind of similar. And then I take those 200 or 300 artists and I try to match them up with playlists and see how many overlaps.
And you do this for each individual campaign. That's why you don't sleep. You just like lie awake in bed.
I sit there.
Each one that comes in, you plug in with the Ethernet cable into your head, and then all of these things are. So it's really high tech.
Honestly, I have my professional computer gaming background to thank for this. I'm really quick with a mouse, and so I can like click and drag. If you say Led Zeppelin, I'll be like, all right, click and drag Pink Floyd. All right, great. And I can actually use two mice at once, so that helps.
Well, one of those like orb keyboards where the guy like types like that. Have you seen those? Fucking crazy, man.
Yeah, so this actually happens in about 100 milliseconds. That's a pretty slow in terms of computer stuff because it's quite a big calculation. But what I do once I've got these sort of similar overlaps is I factor that into the genre match score and I will skew it up or down. So based on the genres you've chosen, they might have been a 6 out of 10, but hot damn, they really enjoy the artist that you have said you sound like. And so I'm going to bump them up to a 7 or maybe even 8. And so that's one factor I'll put in there. The second one that I mentioned was moods. Is it happy? Is it sad? Is it aggressive? Is it scary? Is it experimental? Oof, experimental is a tough one. We can get into that differently. But these moods then factor in, and curators have indicated which moods they're into, and we can also look at their approval history to try and determine which moods that they favor. So I can then use these moods again to influence the genre match score up or down. And all of this, coming back to the overall approval rates, has helped improve who we are showing to artists so that they can make more informed decisions that will help them bump up their average approval rate and get their song to the right people. So we've got genres, we've got similar artists, and we've got moods. These three have factored in to allowing artists to make much more informed decisions. And
platforms. Yeah. Basically, like, imagine SubmitHub as on one side, we take a string and we've got to get that string to the matching point on the other side, but there's like a gajillion things in between that. So
that's actually string theory.
That's string theory. The better we can match that string, the better the chance the artist getting approved.
We've built this genre matching on the back of Stephen Hawking's research over the years.
It's basically we just work with yarn all day. That's kind of how it goes.
All right.
Okay, we have 4 minutes until we have 3 minutes until we've hit 30 minutes.
And then I think at 30 minutes we can open up a open Q&A.
Yeah.
But this brings into what is the future of this. So I've mentioned that similar artists and moods can help steer us in the right direction, but ultimately the most important factor still boils down to the genres that you choose. And this is quite difficult. As Dylan's pointed out, it's a very subjective thing, and not everyone has heard every noise out there. By the way, if you haven't checked out the website, everynoise.com, super cool website. It's owned by Spotify, but it lists their 5,000 genres, and you can click on every one and actually listen to them. It's a really cool website. So one of the things I thought was, what if we could help artists figure out their genres? And there are two ways I've considered doing this. I've decided to go one of those ways. The way I am not going to go is allowing artists to basically spend credits to get sort of snap judgments on their genre. What I was thinking originally was you could put down 5 credits, and within 10 minutes, you would get 10 people, curators, to respond about what genre they think your song fits into. And it was going to pop up at the top of the curator's feed like, hey, quick snap, here's a small payment. What genre is this? And then you could look at those 10 and try to aggregate what they are. It seems I just worry that's a bit of a nightmare to do. And now we've got this whole AI revolution. And I've been quite skeptical about it. We've got some GPT integrations on SubmitHub. They're mostly about summarizing and extracting trends from feedback. But when it comes to audio, I've been quite skeptical about the way that AI can actually handle this, because music is complicated and one song can represent multiple different genres, which is, again, why artists have trouble categorizing theirs into buckets. And AI, from many of the demonstrations I've seen in this space, will hyper-focus on one of the sounds from that song and be like, this is hip-hop. And you're going, well, no, that was just a hip-hop interlude in the middle of a rap song, an indie rock song. It can mess that stuff up. And one platform I've actually seen is probably the market leader here is Cyanite.ai. So they've spent the last 3 or 4 years working on a model that is pretty darn accurate at identifying the genres of a song and actually breaking it down by second. And they've got these cool little waveforms that come through as they go. So what I am going to experiment with probably in the next couple of weeks is integrating Cyanite's API. We've been chatting with them, working with them. They're getting us set up for this. And so we'll have a bit of a partnership with them that allows you to run your song through them and come back with genre suggestions that you can then use to make more informed decisions about where you should categorize yourself on SubmitHub. So mixed by Stutter, the answer to this is that it's coming. You won't really have to spend on it, I don't think. Maybe at some point you will. We'll see, because Cyanite has to make money somehow, and they want to charge us a bunch of money, and yeah, we'll figure it out. Yeah. Okay. That sums up most of the things that we've done algorithmically, but I know we've gone over 30 minutes. There's one thing we did a couple weeks ago that moved us from 22% to 25. And that's like more than a 10% increase in approval rate. 25 divided by 22 equals 1.125 or whatever.
Yeah.
And so the thing we did was we increased the premium requirements. Instead of listening for 20 seconds, you have to listen for 60 seconds. And instead of writing 10 words of feedback, you have to write 20 words of feedback. What that means is that curators are now spending more time with each song, and that gives them more opportunity to change their mind about a song that they might have been on the edge of declining, and now they've changed their mind.
That's not all we did, though.
The other thing we did was we increased prices a bit.
You're missing one very key important thing. We sent all of our curators a kitten, and they all got kittens, and I think they really enjoyed them.
I don't know. That's payola.
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah, got you.
That's catola.
Yeah. Sorry, go for it.
The
two things you said. The two things you went. Yeah.
Yeah, so we increased the requirements around premium stuff. So listening time went up to 60 seconds, feedback went up to 20 words. The second thing we did was we added a 4-credit tier, and we made it easier for curators to move their price up. So in general, a lot of curators have, I think about 50%, maybe 60% of them have moved up in price. What this means is that this was our first price increase since 2015. So that's a pretty big step. Even after this, we're still cheaper than all the other platforms out there. I'm not going to get into that debate. It's more expensive for artists than it was a month ago. And what that means is that artists are being a little bit more thoughtful about who they choose. And instead of the term from the gaming days was spray and pray, where you just send it out to a lot of people, they're being quite specific. And they're using these genre match and engagement metrics that we provided to make more informed decisions about who they're sending to. So we've seen about a 10% drop in terms of the number of curators, number of submissions per curator, but the prices have gone up slightly. So by increasing the prices, we've caused artists to be a little bit more picky, which means that they're sending more targeted songs to curators, which means that curators are getting songs that are more aligned with what they share, and they are sharing more. So I think that those two things, the increased requirements and the slightly higher prices, have actually combined together for better results. So instead of people just throwing their song out there because, hey, what's 1 credit? They're now seeing someone at 2 credits and going, is that worth it? Let me check if there's a good match here. So those are all of the things that have combined together to bring our average approval rate from 10 to 12% up to 25%. Long may it last. It might not. It could drop to 24. It could drop to 23. I don't know. But that is my conclusion. I know I did promise here that we would give you some tips on how you could maximize your own results. I think we've basically given you all of the clues here, but the main thing to look at is the genre match score. Make sure that your genres are right, and then sample their recent shares and their playlists on SubmitHub. You don't even have to leave SubmitHub. It's all right there. You can just hit the play button next to their profile, sample what they've shared, and that'll give you a quick snapshot of whether it's a good idea. And as Dylan mentioned earlier, we've noticed that the artists who spend more time and spend less credits, I know this is crazy for me to be saying, but the ones who spend less credits and spend more time have far better results. You're more likely to get 6 out of 10 approvals, whereas 4 people, 30 or 40 people, you might end up with 10 approvals, but the percentage rate difference there is quite stark. So I always encourage artists to start with a small budget, send out your song, see if people are receptive to it, and then maybe expand from there. And I know one of our main competitors, their big motto here is you should spend a lot more money if you want to get better results.
Are you talking about?
That's not what we want.
You're talking about the one that starts with a G?
Yes, Grishkov.
No. Grish coins. Okay, we've got 5 minutes until I'm shutting this thing down.
That's the end of this part. Although you can ask any questions, but we're going to go through and look at some of these questions. I can highlight them and you can't, huh?
It seems so.
I'm going to go in reverse today.
It was kind of, if you go from the top, it was a lot about how to not.
Oh, was it? I did see one here where, this one here, this is completely unrelated to what we've been talking about. I see this complaint come up fairly often. Standard credits are not a great way to send. It's free. Curators are not required to listen for very long, and many of them don't. They make split-second decisions. They listen for 7 seconds. They go, nah, that's not really what I would be into on the start. These guys are listening to 100 songs a day. It does get a lot easier to tell within the first 3 seconds if you like a song or not. 7 seconds is definitely on the short side, but I myself am guilty of knowing within 7 seconds whether I like a standard song or not, and I will just decline it quickly. I think the important thing to remember with standard credits is it's free. The curator is under no obligation to respond, and yet 80% plus of the time, the curators on SubmitHub are responding to free submissions. Prior to SubmitHub's existence, that was unheard of. And today even, try email 100 blogs and see how many of them respond for free. It's not going to happen. So I know it maybe sounds harsh, or I'm being like mean about it, but you got to reset your expectation on free submissions. It's free. They're not under obligation. They listen for 7 seconds. Hey, they listened for 7 seconds. That's great. They actually opened it up, listened to it, and gave you their thoughts. Or they didn't give you your thoughts. Their thought was,
yeah.
Okay. Let's see. This is true, although I can think of 1 or 2 artists who've had some good success on SubmitHub with this.
Yeah, but it only works if you have an enormous budget, and I don't think
they are spending way too much.
Yeah.
All right, this one's tough. Playlists are quite specific about what they're into. That is something that Spotify finds quite important. It factors into the algorithm. It teaches Spotify where your song should live. It's a huge debate that is, there have been some good videos made about it recently that call out SubmitHub as complicit in this. I don't think that we're actively trying to be complicit in it. We're just trying to help artists in ways that we can. So we realize that independent playlists are not going to garner you tens of thousands of listeners overnight. Yeah, but I mean, pushing you towards niche playlists that actually have the right listeners can teach Spotify's algorithm where you belong, and then the algorithmic stuff will kick in. So that's one place that we've seen it work.
I mean, for one, like, you've got to have listened to, more than half of the playlists on SubmitHub, not even SubmitHub, just, well, actually, yeah, we're talking about SubmitHub, to kind of make that generalized statement in like a really correct way. And then secondly, I would say that because music, especially through the use of Spotify, has become kind of just a service, people come to Spotify playlists, people click on meta ads for Spotify playlists because they're looking for a specific something from that music. And so if I'm promoting a playlist on Meta that's like music that I enjoy, and here's my eclectic taste in music, the chance that you're going to find people who have that exact same eclectic taste in music as you is low, and you're wasting your money running ads. So it's just kind of it's sort of a cool. You can diversify playlists and promote those, but they're just not going to have the same level of engagement because you're reaching out to people across the internet, and most people, their listening habits are, trending towards a certain sound in a certain playlist, and then they take the bits that they like and they maybe make their own eclectic playlist. But I don't go to like I was about to say JC Penney, but I don't go to like Gap and go to the t-shirt aisle. But there's one pair of pants, there's one t-shirt, there's one this, there's one that, all in the same rack. You go to the t-shirt. Actually, it would be better if I mixed it with the sexes. I wouldn't go to the men's. I wouldn't go to the men's aisle and there'd be a bunch of kids' clothes and women's clothing mixed in with the stuff that I'm, it's just organizationally, it's a hack. It's a nightmare. Anyway, that's just part of it.
I like the analogy. This one's a good question. It is something I hope I can address as time goes on. There's more than genre, there's more than similar artists, and there's more than mood. And those are hard to peg down. And sometimes I'm not even sure that the curators themselves know exactly what they want. But I think that as we collect more data and as I spend more time diving into this, we'll be able to get a better scope of this. And this is actually where Cyanide.ai could come in handy. They are able to identify things like whether a song is quite repetitive or whether it varies more in melody. And then we can use those profiles to try and identify whether playlists tend to be very similar in their style or if they're open to songs that are a bit more diverse.
Can you flare your nostrils?
Can I?
It looks pretty weird on camera.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. We have hit 40 minutes.
Yeah, hot or not is a different discussion. Let's not even get into that. I think, what is this? I'm looking at tons of curators now that have less than 10 song shares in the last. So the metric is actually the last 90 days, not 6 months. If their playlists are showing an A, it means that we actually don't have any data available about how many listeners. You'll tend to see this on quite small playlists. If it's showing less than 5, it means we do have data and it is less than 5 listeners. These guys are not allowed to share to a playlist that has under 10 listeners. And this is completely unrelated, but I know many curators find this a bit of a gripe. We're pretty intense about policing or curating the curators. We don't mean for it to come off as overbearing, but it's important to us to try and find some sort of balance here and make sure that people are behaving. There are what, more than 1,000 curators, 1,300. We used to have about 2,000. We've actually trimmed a lot of the fat. You'll find them on Groover. If you want, you can go over there and look at them.
That was a good one.
So we've actually, I mean, a lot. We cut a lot of people who approve too many genres. We're sharing to dead playlists. We're sharing to radio stations and just saying yes to everything, but it disappears into the void. Anyway,
like we're Uber and they're Bolt. I don't know if I want to be associated with Uber, but I guess
let's just not even go down this path. But Bolt's got a pretty good tech app. I used them when I was in Budapest, and it was pretty top notch. But
different parts of the world, I guess, like France, it maybe works better. Anyway,
Uber's great in France. Gruyère. So anyway, the playlist showing less than 5 mean that they are getting less than 5. Curators are not allowed to share the playlist as a proper share if it's got less than 10 listeners. And what actually happens is that if it drops below about 50 monthly listeners, we're going to have Jamie on our team step in and try help that playlist to grow that playlist or get it back on the right path so that it can have the engagement necessary to be on SubmitHub. There's no point in submitting to someone for 3 credits and ending up on a playlist that has fewer listeners than your grandmother's playlist. So we're hyper aware of this. And part of that is from feedback from artists who are, WTF, mate, how did I get on this? Yeah. Okay, I think that's enough, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what else we're supposed to do. Is this just where we sort of...
I think this is where we end. Yeah, but if we go... Oh, wait. If you go off the screen, and then you come back, go off the screen.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, that
nice.
was good. That was really good.
That was really good.
That was
really
accidental. Hey, I hope you guys are enjoying the split screen. I hope you enjoyed our live stream. I can't wait to hear Kojo.
Why don't you do? Why don't I do an S?
left field.
Why don't I do an S and you do an H? Or wait, other way around.
S for shit. I mean for SubmitHub. Sorry.
Yeah, for SubmitHub, dude. Come on.
There's
How do I
my
make
that's
an
a funny
H?
H. That's a funny H.
No, you do the S. I'll do the H.
Oh.
There we go. I got the H.
Hold on.
Did I? Fuck.
Why is it so hard? I went to a Waldorf school. I should know how to make.
Does anybody have a good way of making an
Oh.
H?
By the way.
Okay, I'm
sweating. There was one last thing here that I thought was pretty interesting actually. This is where we're gonna end. There is a secret hidden part of SubmitHub.
What's it called again?
SubmitHub.com/friendly genres, and there's a dash in between it. Friendly genres, and what you'll find. Yeah, SubmitHub.com/friendly genres. I'm going to put it in the comment. Are you putting it in the comments?
I put it in the comments.
You did?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, and that actually
go check out my page.
Did you in the comments?
It's done.
We both did. It's in there twice. I'll delete mine. Oh,
no, leave it.
And user. All right. Anyway, SubmitHub.com/friendly genres is a pretty cool page. It shows you the friendliest genres on SubmitHub from the last 30 days. So that's one of the super secret pages.
Let's get out of here. Okay.
All right.
Bye.